year have gone by, and we are sort of staring down the barrel of the next 6 months. A lot of things have changed. When we started the year, there was a lot of, we were confronted with a lot of economic realities, which sort of have gone back onto the back burner, and new uncertainties, new realities, new paradigms have come up. So we thought, why not have a session on a mid-semester look at the Indian economy and combine the AGM with our annual India Economic Conclave. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. What we shall be doing is that before we commence this program, I will just share with you some pointers so that the next few hours in which we have a fairly full and very heavy schedule, so that the next few hours for you are easier, and you have easier sort of navigating through the rest of the program. We have our chief guest, Sri Piyush Goyal, joining us through a video message, because unfortunately he could not be physically present today because of something very urgent that has come up in Delhi. And not the foreign trade policy, which has been postponed, but something else. But however, this morning we have received a video message from his office, which we shall play for you shortly. We shall commence the program with our President's welcome address on the occasion of the Chamber's AGM. And thereafter, we shall kick off the India Economic Conclave 2022. You must be having a program schedule on the tables. However, the profiles of all our speakers have been uploaded on our website. And all you have to do is either visit our website or scan the QR code on the tent card on your table, and you can look at the flow of the program. Our annual report has also been uploaded on our website, and we thought that we will not sort of separately take you through the annual report. You can go through it leisurely with all pictures, a full feedback on our activities that we have done over the year, and that's available on the BCCI website, bengalchamber.com. The video of our activities of the bygone year, we have already played in loop. I hope that you have had time to go through it. We shall also put that up on our YouTube page. Finally, may I request you to please keep your mobiles on the silent mode so that we can run the program seamlessly. May I now request the President of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Abraham Stephanos, for his presidential address and to kick off this year's AGM. Sir.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed a privilege to be able to welcome you all today at the AGM of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the oldest chamber of its kind in India. AGMs come once in a year and herald a new beginning. As the Director General mentioned, this year we thought of organizing the 5th edition of our India Economic Conclave as a public session of our AGM, with the objective of having a mid-semester look at the Indian economy amidst current global realities. This will also help us as a chamber to align our programs and focus for the rest of the current fiscal on issues such that our members can derive maximum benefit from well-targeted activities. The objective of the conclave is also to learn from policymakers, thought leaders, bankers, economists, and industry captains about the direction of the economy Our thanks to speakers who have come from all over India. 6 months have gone by in the fiscal year, and in fact, we are confronted with realities which did not even exist when the current fiscal started. The IMF expects that the Indian economy will cross US dollars 5 trillion by 2026-27. India's gross GDP has already crossed 3 trillion US dollars. In its third monetary policy that was announced in August, the Reserve Bank of India retained its GDP growth forecast at 7.2% of the current fiscal year, but cautioned against negative spillovers of geopolitical tensions and a slowdown in the global economy. As we head towards the fourth monetary policy meeting, which is scheduled tomorrow, there are indications that the recovery in domestic economic activity remains firm, with growth becoming increasingly broad-based. I am sure all these subjects and more would be discussed in the next 3 very engaging sessions. At this point, I reminisce with fondness the many achievements of the Bengal Chamber during the year. To mention a few notable ones, the Chamber has taken its activities in the realm of energy, environment and sustainability to greater heights by participating in the COP26 in November 2021 at Glasgow. Perhaps we were the only chamber to be represented there by organizing a panel discussion on accelerating electric mobility with green jobs and gender parity. The Bengal Chamber also collaborated and organized a hugely successful 2-day job fair with the government of West Bengal in April 2022, where industry and segment leading organizations from all across the country participated, and close to 4,000 candidates were selected or shortlisted. Also, the Chamber has, for the first time ever, gone beyond our national borders with our programs. The Chamber organized an International Health and Wellness Expo in Chittagong, Bangladesh, a fortnight back, which drew astounding response and participation from healthcare and wellness stakeholders from India, Bangladesh, and Malaysia. There are so many such programs, activities, and footprints in a multitude of areas and verticals, all of which are presented in our annual report, which has been updated on our website. And I would urge you to have a look at the report, and you can actually see for yourself the breadth of activities that the Chamber has carried out throughout the year. I wish to take this opportunity to thank the former presidents, members of the Managing Committee, chairpersons, co-chairpersons, members of our expert committees, and all our other chamber members for making this a truly memorable year. It has been an enriching experience serving this historic institution, and it gives me great joy to have been part of this journey. I also wish to thank the Chamber Secretariat for the wonderful job they have done in holding all these events together and guiding the membership smoothly during a very busy year and a very eventful year. We have with us eminent speakers traveling all the way to Kolkata just for this event. And I am eager, as all of you, to hear their perspectives and prescriptions on the roadmap for our economy. We are delighted to have the Honorable Minister of Commerce and Industry, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution and Textiles, Government of India, Shri Piyush Goyal, addressing us virtually today. And without further ado, I would like to let the day's proceedings flow now. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, sir. We shall now move on to the India Economic Conclave 2022. And to commence the session, we shall play for you the video address by Shri Piyush Goyal, Honorable Minister of Commerce and Industry, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution and Textiles, Government of India. Can we have the video, please?
Good morning, friends. I'm delighted to join you for the opening session of India Economic Conclave on a mid-semester look at the Indian economy, organized by the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry. At the outset, let me wish you a very happy Navratri. Kolkata's Durga Puja festival is an experience we all look forward to. I pray for your good health and success in the years ahead. It is a fact that the global outlook has deteriorated markedly in 2022 amid high inflation and uncertainties from the war and the lingering effects of the pandemic. India has proved to be an outlier. Under Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi's visionary leadership, it is on a steady growth path and has emerged as amongst the fastest growing large economies with sharply targeted fiscal spending and supply side measures. India will be the pillar for global economic revival, an island of stability amongst global uncertainties. All our sectors, be it agriculture, manufacturing, or construction, are indeed doing quite well. Our economy showed resilience during the pandemic. India, as a nation, met every service obligation across the world during the pandemic, and we were rightly called the world's trusted partner. Growth has an Indian address. In fact, McKinsey's global CEO recently remarked, "It is not India's decade, it is India's century." But India is not satisfied with only being the fastest growing economy. We are aiming for smart, sustainable, and equitable growth. As Bill Gates recently wrote, and I quote, "At G20, India can show the way." Prime Minister Modi's welfare empowerment schemes should be a blueprint for many countries. Unquote. It is a proud moment that in our 75th year of independence, India today is the world's 5th largest economy, turbocharging its way to becoming the 3rd largest in the coming years. This is Prime Minister Modi's vision of a Vikasit Bharat, a developed nation, by 2047, when we celebrate 100 years of independence. Structural reforms have strengthened India from our very core, and I can assure you, friends, many more game-changing reforms are in the pipeline. The government today is acting as an enabler with policies like the National Logistics Policy recently introduced, our production-linked incentive schemes in over 15 sectors, including the semiconductor industry, with government support aggregating nearly $26-27 billion, our SEZ policy, foreign direct investment, which has consistently shown records over the last 7-8 years, and facilitative initiatives like the National Single Window System, our labor reforms, Startup India, Make in India, Digital India, the Pradhan Mantri Gati Shakti National Master Plan, and the National Infrastructure Pipeline. Due to the healthy ease of doing business ecosystem, witnessing an unprecedented amount of capital flowing into the country, we are today a very preferred destination for global investments. The government, as you may be aware, is also actively pursuing free trade agreements with like-minded developed countries where we have a lot of complementarity. And our FTA negotiations today are based on in-depth analysis, significant stakeholder consultations, and are truly reflective of the principles of reciprocity and provide win-win solutions for all stakeholders. We are targeting to take our exports to $2 trillion by 2030, $1 trillion coming out of merchandise exports and another $1 trillion from services. Following futuristic technology-enabled approach, we have launched the beta version of the open network for digital commerce, which aims to democratize e-commerce. We have also introduced the government e-marketplace, amongst the world's biggest initiatives to provide a technology-enabled, transparent e-commerce marketplace for government procurement. Very soon, we shall be launching 5G, and over the next couple of years, take it to the length and breadth of the country, which is expected to contribute nearly $450 billion in 15 years to the Indian economy. India is today taking leadership roles at global platforms. You are all aware of how India took the lead and protected the interests of less developed countries and developing nations at the Ministerial Conference number 12, recently held at the WTO headquarters in Geneva. We shall soon be taking up the G20 presidency and contributing to the global efforts to work towards sustainable development goals and help developing and less developed countries in their efforts to take prosperity to their people. Industry should capitalize on our efforts and become the driving force to take growth to the next level. May I suggest 4 areas where industry can help accelerate India's economic growth. 1, I would urge all of you to invest in the India story, as India is receiving unprecedented support across the world, and the world is looking up to India to provide a solid alternative manufacturing base. We should take the initiative and with confidence invest in India. I would also recommend investments in ventures in newer cities, tier 2, tier 3 towns, which are going to become the next big drivers of the Indian economy. Simultaneously, I would urge you to invest in emerging technologies, indigenization, innovation, and research and development. As they say, quality bhi chahiye, sustainability भी चाहिए. Our effort should be to focus on zero defect, zero effect, and produce high quality products which can compete in the best markets across the world and also reflect India's concerns and contribution towards a better world, leaving behind a cleaner and better environment for our next generation. Number 3, we must promote the MSME sector. Let us try to strengthen local supplier networks as they are job creators and major contributors to the economy. Number 4, let us increase interaction between government and industry. I would urge you to extensively participate in our FTA negotiations, for which we are regularly consulting with export promotion councils, sectoral industry associations, and all concerned parties to help us improve our negotiations and get a good deal for all of you. Similarly, I urge you to use the national single window, get engaged with our ONDC initiative, and also help us achieve our targets to bring down the cost and improve the efficiency of our logistics systems through the national logistics policy. Friends, I am confident that the next 25 years, the Amrit Kal, as the Honorable Prime Minister called it, will be the brightest phase for the Indian economy. And with the collective effort of 130 crore Indians working in the true spirit of duty, एक कर्तव्य भाव से जब हम सब काम करेंगे, we can surely reach a $30 trillion GDP by 2047 when we celebrate 100 years of independence and script India's growth story for the world. My best wishes to all of you in this journey over the next 25 years. May all your businesses prosper and you help take prosperity to every single home in India. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thomas, is that after today's session is over, we shall be compiling the discussions and find out the way forward and suitably take the same to the union government. With our chief guest having set the tone for the conclave, he has talked about structural reforms, trade negotiations, policy overview, and most importantly, the aspirations of the country. From there, we shall move on to the pulse of the industry. May I now request the moderator for the panel discussion on a mid-semester look at the Indian economy, our president, Mr. Abraham Stefanos, and the panelists for the panel discussion to please take their seats on the dais. Mr. Abraham Stefanos, President, BCC and I, and Managing Director, Tata Steel Downstream Products Limited. Mr. Shubhit Chakraborty, President Designate BCC and I, and Managing Director and CEO, Exide Industries Limited. Mr. Shashank Srivastava, Senior Executive Officer, Marketing and Sales, Maruti Suzuki India Limited. Mr. Shudip Mazumdar, Head, Digital Manufacturing and Special Projects, L&T ECC. Mr. Abhijit Roy, Managing Director and CEO, Berger Paints India Limited. Mr. Nitin Jain, Managing Director and Vice President, India and Southeast Asia, Vesuvius India Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you to please put your hands together and welcome the panel. Over to Mr. Abraham Stephanos to take the discussions forward.
Good morning once again, and welcome to all our panelists, Nitin Jain, Mr. Majumdar, Sudeep Majumdar, Subir Chakravarti, Shashank Srivastava, and Abhijit Roy. After hearing the Honorable Minister's talk, I think it has set the right tone for a discussion on the mid-semester look at the Indian economy. If you recall, when the budget was announced, the whole world was in a recovery phase. Omicron hadn't hit. The Russia-Ukraine war wasn't there. Oil prices were at $70 a barrel. And a lot of the country's investments, the budget plans, investment in infrastructure, etc., is based on certain costings that were done at that point in time in a very, very different situation from where we find ourselves now. Most analysts say that the world is heading for a severe recession in the next year. The exception is India. India is one of the few oases of growth in the world economy. The Honorable Minister in his address talked about 4 areas that he urged us to focus on. One is invest in the India story. Second was invest in emerging technologies, indigenization and R&D. The third was promote the MSME sector. And the fourth, increase interaction between government and industry. Participate in FTA negotiations, CPC, etc. And I thought that this actually aligns very well with the Chamber's own agenda. And today, the panelists truly represent a cross-section of industry. We have Mr. Nitin Jain from the refractory industries, VCUS India, which is serving, you can say, the core sector. We have Mr. Sudeep Majumdar from L&T ECC. He heads the digital manufacturing and special projects, and again, it's a very important core sector activity that he represents. We have Mr. Subir Chakravarti, Managing Director of Exide Industries, who are serving the transportation sector, and they are getting into a lot more newer areas, which we'll discuss in a little while. And Mr. Shashank Srivastava, Maruti Suzuki India, Maruti needs no introduction, which is leading the change in the Indian automotive industry. And finally, Mr. Abhijit Roy, of Managing Director of Berger Paints India Limited, a leader in their industry. And with this cross-section of industry represented here, I would like the panelists to address, as you see it, what are the major impact that these recent changes, the Ukraine war, the increase in oil prices, everything has had on your industry, and what do you see for your industry going forward? And if you could address another aspect that the Honorable Minister mentioned, that is India being the most trusted partner. Is the current situation creating opportunities for us to take an even greater role in the world economy? So, Abhijit, can I start with you? And you can share your thoughts on this aspect.
So I think, overall, as far as the paint industry goes, and I'll speak from what you have asked, what is the impact of the oil price increase or the Ukraine war and what has happened there. We are closely linked to the oil prices because most of our raw material is derived out of that. So it has had an impact in terms of inflation, the raw material prices going up, and which we had to pass on to consumers and customers who buy paint from us. The impact in terms of sales growth so far has been quite positive, I would say, in spite of the inflation. So there was a fear that there might be a bit of a drop in demand. But what we have seen so far is that the demand has held forth and growth has been quite robust actually, both in volume terms and of course due to the inflation also in value terms. We haven't faced the type of recession that was expected and probably we have been a bit lucky that way. I see the Indian economy actually a little bit divergent on two fronts. There is a category of people who are moneyed, who have enough income, and they don't mind splurging on the goodies. And that is why you see that when you go to a tourist center today, say in Srinagar in the summers, getting a good hotel was a problem. It was like costing about 65,000 rupees a room night in that situation. It was so crowded. So there is a large group of people who are spending. You go to any mall, you go to any of these, the cars, I am sure, Shashank will be able to say better. There's a waiting list for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. So there is a lot of demand at one corner. At the other end, there is some suffering, which is at the lower end, at the bottom of the pyramid. The inflation has gone up. The prices of food has gone up. It has impacted that particular segment. So we see a little bit of a slowdown on the bottom of the pyramid products and a substantial increase possibly in sales, which is a dichotomy, as I was mentioning, in the Indian economy today. So that's something which is, visible in our case as well. We see a luxury products doing quite well. The economy products, unfortunately, has a slower growth rate. So that's how it is.
Thank you, Abhijit. So that actually sets the tone for my next question, which I'll put to Mr. Shashank Srivastava. So Abhijit talked about raw material or input cost inflation. However, demand also being strong and slowdown at the bottom of the pyramid. And Maruti Suzuki, as we know, is moving into, you're leading in the small car segment. India has basically been known as a small car economy. But Maruti has also moved to the larger platforms along with Toyota. So in your particular industry context, what are the major changes that have taken place and how do you see things going forward?
Yeah, in fact, very well put by Abhijit ji. Our industry is sort of reflecting exactly what Abhijit ji just mentioned. Our industry also, as you know, 75 to 80% of our costs of any OEM in auto industry is material cost. And material cost is affected directly by commodity prices. Commodity prices in the last couple of years have really increased. So much so that all the OEMs have had to take multiple price increases, but not as much as the commodity prices which have gone up. I'll give you an example of steel. Steel for us used to, cost about 38 rupees a kg in May 2020, went up to 84, came down a little bit, maybe around 64, 65 now, but still almost double of what it was 2 years back. Copper, $5,200 went up to $10,400, still around that $8,300 today. Aluminium, $1,400, $1,500 going up to $3,800, coming down again around 24, 25. Same with palladium, rhodium. You talk about plastics, everything. So commodity prices has resulted in increase in average vehicle selling price. The average vehicle selling price in the Indian auto industry has increased from about 6.1 lakh to now 9.3 lakhs. That's a pretty strong increase in the last 3 years. But as Abhijit ji just mentioned, we have seen different effects on different segments. So if you look at the entry-level segment, the effect seems to have been quite negative. Largely because I think the elasticity of demand for the smaller segment consumer is much more. They are more sensitive to the price changes. Not so much for the upper level. In fact, segments like SUV segment have now become the largest segment in the industry, almost 42% of the total passenger vehicle. I'm talking of passenger vehicle industry. So clearly there is a mismatch in demand patterns. Overall, if you see though, this year, it is expected that the industry will do about 3.7 to 3.8 million units. The highest ever was 18-19, which was 3.36 million. So there is an increase and it's higher than the highest that we have achieved, which was in 18-19. So despite all the increase in prices, the regulatory stringency, the taxation which seems to be on the road tax and registration tax negative, we have seen industry going up, but that's not the story across the industry. Although I come from passenger vehicle industry, so passenger vehicle is, as I said, highest ever probably this year. It will reach highest ever. But two-wheeler, for example, are down. In 18-19, two-wheelers were 21 million. Last year, they were 13.5 million. Commercial vehicle was 10 lakh. Last year, it was 7.8 lakh. If you look at three-wheelers, 7.8 lakh in 18-19, it's 6.8 lakh. Similarly, with tractors, it's the only where you have seen an increase over 18-19. So it's a mixed, and I think that's because in our economy, as Abhijit ji said, there seems to be different segments affected differently. I think the income, the distribution has changed a little bit from wages to profits. And therefore, you see a dichotomy where earnings may be going up for companies, stock markets going up, but at the same time, consumption at the lower L coming down. So that has been the story of auto as well. On the future though, we are very bullish about the future. Car penetration in India is just 30 against almost 900 for US, for example. We have become the 4th largest passenger vehicle market in the world. It is expected we will be number 3 in the world in about 2 years' time. So a lot of positives. We are expecting a growth of 6.2% CAGR over the next 6-7 years. Market being 6 million by 2030. And we can, of course, discuss, there are some risks, obviously. So I would say great going this year. Segment-wise, the story is a little different. And on the whole, very bullish on the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Srivastav. So we heard from two industries which are, in a sense, B2C. But I would like to move to this part of the table. And on the B2B side, if I can ask you, Nitin, how have you fared and how do you see the industry situation going forward?
Well, so refractory industry is, just to make a quick introduction, it's a material that allows hot metal containment, whole metal flow through a steel plant. So if you look at refractory industry, it's largely serve steel industry, but then we also serve likes of cement and aluminum. So very infrastructure linked industry. If you reflect last, let's say 18 months, I think the demand has been strong on steel, both domestic as well as international. And that has actually connected the dots with the refractory industry. We have seen a lot of investment commitment from steel industry and of course infrastructure linked. I think government upbeat commitment towards infrastructure spending has created the positive sentiment. So over last 18 months, I think it has been a good going. Now looking forward, there are two parts to the story. One is there is a lot of strong commitment from large industries like steel in terms of making large investment. And especially if we talk about steel industry as such, most of the investment goes into areas which are away from urban areas, in rural areas, where we really need to create jobs. Okay, so a lot of investment is in plan, and we see all large groups are quite committed to it. But there are two, I would say, two ways to look at it if you look forward. Number one, overall global scenario has been quite weak because of this energy crisis. We see a lot of manufacturing in Europe as well as in North America. It start to look negative on the outlook. Of course, interest rates going up, as well as the energy cost goes up, the production cost goes high. And it makes production of steel, for example, in Europe, less competitive compared to economies like India. India is rich with mineral resources, especially iron, which makes Indian steel industry very competitive. Now, that being said, in short term, I would say with the investment that we see coming up, which are infrastructure linked, is very positive and upbeat. But at the same time, I think there is also challenge from the policy side. So if I specifically talk about steel, today India export about 10 to 15% of steel out of total production in India. And we compete with the Asian countries, we compete in Europe, we compete in North America. Now, as the external environment gets weaker because of the energy crisis or energy challenges, it should actually make Indian economy or Indian steel much more competitive, much more viable in foreign markets. Now, that being said, I think there has been some policy framework, especially export taxes, which have been applied on steel, and I can understand the reason behind it, but I think it creates a challenge for the industry, which on one hand you have very large investment coming in, and investment in areas where you potentially see the jobs which are required in the areas which are rural, but at the same time you have export tax, which create the dampening effect on the commitment that we have seen in these large scale projects. So long term, I would say if automotive going to grow 6 to 7%, still demand going to grow 6 to 7%. So I think the basic infrastructure industries such as steel, aluminum, cement, they should follow the path of GDP. In that case, I think overall longer term, short term we potentially have some challenges, but longer term 6 to 7% growth is quite viable. Should be even more as we are early cycle in the infrastructure development. So the demand for infrastructure should be actually more than GDP growth. So overall upbeat, but of course short term some challenges.
Thank you, Nitin. So I'd like to move on to Sudeep, who is also, you can say, a supplier to the core sector. He is building infrastructure. So I would like to ask him, particularly in the, let's say L&T is very closely involved in, you can say, the building the infrastructure of the nation. And the plans for Gati Shakti, the infrastructure investments that the government had planned in the budget, has it got adversely impacted by the rise in oil prices and the higher fiscal deficit, and is the government making the planned investments? If you can comment on that. And the second is, I will move on to the next theme that we would like to touch, that is on digitization and construction. And the Honorable Minister also spoke about that. He talked about this open network for digital commerce and 5G launch, etc. And how digitization is changing your industry, because Indian construction industry is still modernizing. So one of the persons in the industry actually remarked to me that we are still 20 years, at least 20 years behind. So if you can talk about the extent of infrastructure investment, whether compared to the budget, whether that is happening, and move on to this subject of digitization. We will explore that theme next.
So actually I was looking at the panel. Everybody is MD, who's a managing director. I'm the digital marketing DM, the other way. So possibly I will talk more digital and technology than other things. Well, I know that you have covered most of this input cost, output cost, logistics disruptions, global market problems, etc., to be honest. So first of all, we are always upbeat because I'm just back from Hazira, actually, in Surat, that belt, where we are doing high-speed railways, which is, government so far has given 50,000, around 50,000 contract. We've got 42,000 crore contract. So it's a huge speed going on and a huge learning for us. I'll come back to the technology side on that. In terms of, the India's longest sea link that we are building in Mumbai. So that also is a technology marvel rather than a civil engineering marvel. I know that a lot of civil engineers will be there in this audience, but a lot of technologies, whether it's a material science, whether it's a digital operations as going on, and we are putting a lot of money in that as an L&T. Everybody is having problem, post-COVID, pre-COVID, all the things, people are talking about. And we also have our own challenges during the COVID. For 6 months, probably 5 to 6 months, we paid to 160,000 contract laborers plus our own employees every month without a job card. And 4 or 5 months was zero revenue, right? We sustained that pressure. Yes, we had a major trouble. But it was a stated policy that we will not be taking any job of anybody. And in fact, possibly it will be a good thing to know for all of us, when we talk about people-oriented business. When we had 160,000 contract labor stuck in the sites across the country, even outside, the problem with these contract laborers are basically they are through the local gangs, right? And they get the money and they send it to their home. So at that point in time, what happened is we actually served them the money, we served their home, as well as we actually treated them with the food and the shelter all together. So it was a double the money actually we spent at that point in time. So it was a terrible time, but it's the point in time that we brag ourselves as well. We got that over now, and we are on the good track. A lot of good projects are coming up, and we are getting in all sectors, whether it's airport, whether it's underground, whether it's any kind of large projects that we are getting. So that's one part of the story. Now, the second part of the story is the digital. If you think of, in 2018-19, we started our digital journey in 2016. 2019, there was a conference in Dubai. The top 10, you said that 20 years behind we are. So top 10 construction companies, EPC companies, ENC companies were listed. It was a international conference. The number one was L&T in digital, because only L&T had a CDO on the roll. No other, talk any other large EPC company in the world, nobody had a CDO in 2018, 2019. So, and L&T being a little bit orthodox company, we created the CDO position. And we invested since 2016, I've been part of it, and we invested, I can't give you the numbers, but certainly it's quite a few hundreds of crores actually have invested, right? In fact, I was there in Hazira last 3-4 days, we are negotiating 240 crores investment only in the digital. So when you are talking about the challenges, the input cost challenges or the market challenges, whether market dichotomy, one of the ways to make money or get money or extract value, looking at your own pasture. And that's what we are doing. And what we are doing is we are continuously digitalizing and transforming our operations. Whether it's a construction, go to any construction site today. You'll be seeing virtual reality, augmented reality based trainings. Any construction site, I can give you a challenge. There are gears and people are actually getting trained. Right, number one. Number two is that you see that the safety, the quality, everything is mobile enabled. Right? Not only mobile, we have mobile on the top of AI. Somebody was talking about that, we are still thinking of AI, but we have taken the AR and AI at the site with the contract labor. You can go to the actually a Play Store, App Store, or Play Store. You can actually, there is a Spurch, there is an app, augmented reality app. We made it democratized. We put it to the people. We said the safety is everybody's responsibility. Everybody will be looking at that. It's not, we'll be training, of course. So technology can do wonder, and that is what actually keep us going very much during the trouble time, right? If you think of during the COVID period, how did, everybody talked about pre-COVID period that authority engineer will be signing, they'll be only signing it when they'll be seeing it physically. How did it happen during the COVID? Who came to the site? It's us who were there in the site, and we self-declared, right? So I think what the minister said is absolutely true. The digital is the number 2 point, but 1 or 2 put together. If we don't put digital, please do. Another important thing, since all the MDs and the CEOs are here, if I look at the Gartner chart, the technology investment compared to the revenue, if you look at the sectoral areas like pharmaceutical, the manufacturing, or any other sector, which is the least over period and over again, is the agriculture and construction. Manufacturing around 2 to 3%, pharmaceutical around 4 to 5%, and tech sector is around 5 to 6% or 6 to 7%, right? That's a global figure. If I look at it, I know very well the Indian sector, even though I came back after 2012 from UK, but I see that I know at least 10 companies who are not even 1%. 0.6, 0.5, 0.7%. Look at your pasture, how much technology you have invested. Because technology is going to be the one which will be extracting your value from your operations. Howsoever manpower is going to be costly, right? As the input cost, manpower is going to be costly, even more costly when the labor reforms bill come up, because there will be lots of liabilities from the companies. So we should gear up first now, right now, to go for investment in the technology, otherwise it will be very, very difficult. In L&T, one in L&T, one in Piramal Group, I did 2 advanced analytics AI-based program with McKinsey. In L&T, we have, in one program, we have extracted on paper, vetted by the CFOs and CEOs, 109 crore, $15 million equivalent. In one program in Piramal Glass, we before just being bought out by Blackstone, we got 50 CR, and I led those programs. So if somebody says that these programs don't yield result, I can always be consulted with, but please invest in technologies, invest in latest analytics so that you can get, in your trouble time, get some money back. Thank you.
Thank you. I will circle back to the subject later when we have, when the way we have planned the time is, this session goes on till 12 o'clock. From 11:45 we will take questions from the audience. But before that, we want to touch on a few other areas. One is on the question of sustainability, other is on the question of how we can encourage MSMEs. So on that MSME, this thing, we will come back to this technology and sustainability area. But now I'd like to move on to Subir. And Exide, as we know, is again a leader in their industry in India. And it's a company that has invested in technology and is moving into a lot of new areas. These two subjects of technology and digitalization, how is that aspect getting addressed in your company's operations?
So, thanks, Abe, for raising 2 very relevant questions. The first observation which I have is, I do not quite understand why industry laments disruption. Because if you look at human history, all innovations have happened and have come out of disruptive moments. So any disruptive moment in history is an opportunity for us to innovate. And that is exactly what has happened, I think, globally, and more so in India, both at the government level and also at the individual private level. So you asked the question that, how technology, how we are embracing technology in the present times. Now, the opportunity for embracing technology actually came during disruption, as it must have happened with many companies, because one had to work from home. So I don't think people had heard of Zoom and some of these other things before the pandemic actually struck us. So that was how the whole journey started. And I think if you look at Exide, I for one definitely understood at that point in time that we can either digitalize or perish. There is no middle way. So therefore, we embarked on this huge exercise of complete digitalization of the company. There is a difference between digitization and digitalization. Digitization is only when you convert certain specific items into the digital code. Digitalization refers to complete transformation of the company, which is what we undertook at that point in time. Today, Exide is not just a brick and mortar company. It's a company which is today embedded in a very, very complex and highly digitalized framework. Starting with accounting, HR processes, supply chain management, manufacturing, sales processes, everything is digitalized. Today, when a salesperson goes to the field, on his tablet, he can see which are the distributors he should attempt to visit on that particular day, what are the items he should be talking with the distributors, and what are the products that he can sell. The entire thing is running on a back-end artificial intelligence. And I, for one, have realized the extent of efficiency which can be built in through these processes. It's absolutely unparalleled and unimagined, and something which I could never think of even 3 years back. It unleashes tremendous amount of efficiency into the workforce. So this has come as an opportunity. So I do not think that, we had basically 3 disruptions. We had the pandemic, then we had the logistics, the China issue where everything got stuck up, and then we have this Russia-Ukraine war. So again, if you look at war, for example, I think it is throwing open markets like Russia, like CIS countries for Indian exporters. Because today, if you look at Russia, for example, they are not getting products from the Western nations. And this is a great opportunity, I think, for Indian exporters, because we have a, rupee kind of arrangement with Russia. So it's possible for us to export to some of these countries. So, as I was saying, all these present opportunities, which we should identify, go back to the drawing board, see what are the issues which are relevant for the specific company, and then take it forward. Now, technology somehow has become synonymous with the digital intervention. It has become synonymous with computers, it has become synonymous with coding, it has become synonymous with SAP, Oracle, and so on. But technology, I think, embraces a much larger arena. And being in the battery industry, I think we have embarked on a very important step, perhaps our biggest investment in the last 75 years. We are today, we have embarked on a capex outlay of rupees 6,000 crores for a lithium-ion cell-making project in Bangalore on an 80-acre plot, which we are doing in 2 phases, and we expect to start production in 2024. So that's the other side of technology which we have embarked on in getting into alternate cell chemistries, which I think are going to play a very major role in India.
Thank you, Subir. So, obviously, technology is going to be the key competitive lever, a key efficiency lever, a key performance lever in the future. One of the themes that the world is grappling with is sustainability. And sustainability objectives have been taken by most of the leading nations in the world. And sustainability is providing opportunities as well as challenges for industries that want to address markets outside the country and even within the country. And I would now like to ask Mr. Shashank Srivastava that this issue of sustainability, and because Maruti also does a lot of export, and it is affecting manufacturing, it is affecting various activities, the entire supply chain. How are you addressing this challenge?
Yeah, so basically auto industry, if you consider the issues before it, sometime back, a couple of years back, we had the COP26 resolution, whereby for the auto industry, for India, it was promised that we will bring down the emission levels to, and I'm linking sustainability and environment for this, to 45% below 2005 levels. 154 gram per kilometer is the emission in 2005, and the target is by 2030 to bring it down by 45%. That was the COP26 target. And sustainable energy production to be around 50% from what used to be earlier 40% under the COP22. That means that we have to have technologies which create lower emission, and also technologies which use, reuse, recycle as much as possible the material which is put in for making an automobile, whether it is plastics, whether it is batteries, whether it is other material. And I think that is what the industry is doing. Of course, you have other things which manufacturers do, like Maruti Suzuki does, whether it is in terms of recycling of groundwater or replenishment of groundwater, and a lot of water is consumed during production processes. Those are aside, or using more efficient ways of using electricity and energy. That's the second thing. But in terms of vehicle itself, we have to look at technologies which will bring carbon footprints down. And that is the endeavor of the industry and also Maruti Suzuki. In fact, a cut from 154 to 78 gram per kilometer, which is the target for 2032 under the CAFE fourth phase expectedly, is obviously a very steep one. And we are looking at technology agnostic vehicles. Like you could look at electric vehicles, you could look at hydrogen powered ones, you can look at flex fuels, you can look at CNG, and so on and so forth, biogas. And we are looking at all of them. And here comes the point which I don't know whether it's a subject of discussion going forward about electric vehicles. Electric vehicle, of course, it is said, and there is a consensus in the industry that in the long run, the adoption of EVs will be there, and that will be the mainstream. However, what is not a consensus is when it will be. So the question is not whether, the question is when. And there, different countries have different approaches. Right now, the adoption of EVs in India is around 1%. It was last year 0.6%. 21,000 cars out of 30 lakh, 70,000 cars sold were electric last year. And there are two barriers to it. One is the cost of acquisition, which is basically the battery technology which goes into electric vehicle. Battery cost, by the way, for people who, most of you would be aware of it, is 50% of the cost of EVs. So battery technology is currently not allowing cost of acquisition to be low. And second, of course, is the charging infrastructure, which leads to range anxiety amongst consumer. That is preventing the adoption of EVs. To be sure, adoption of EVs in different categories of automobile will be different. Two-wheeler, three-wheeler will be faster. Four-wheeler will be a little slower. Within four-wheeler, larger cars will be faster, smaller cars will be slower. And Maruti Suzuki actually in this process is making all attempts to make sure that environmentally to contribute to that sustainability of resources, that we increase the fuel efficiency and therefore reduce the carbon footprint. And we are doing it in multiple ways, including CNG, till the time EVs become mainstream. And just for your information, because people do feel that EVs will be like about 100% shortly, it's not so. Projections currently are, in India, EVs will be about 15% of the total market. And till 2030, India will be selling 38 million cars, out of which only 1 million will be EVs. So what do you do about the rest of the vehicles to make them sustainable for the environment, to make them environment friendly, to reduce the carbon footprints? And that is why we have to focus on many new technologies like the strong hybrids, like the CNG, like the biogas, the flex fuel. And I think increasingly so, we will be mandated to work in those directions. That's what we are trying to do to make it more. And I'm not talking of the other measures like water recycling or recycling of material, etc., which obviously is essential, or energy usage, or solar power. It also depends on what country is pushing for. Like in our country, most of the electricity is produced thermal way. And thermal, as you know, is not such a clean way of producing electricity. In our case, like in Middle East, there is so much resources of fossil fuel. They may not push as much for electric. For Germany, for example, they are really pushing for electric vehicles for the simple reason that they have excess electricity. Many of you will be knowing that in Germany, last year, about 211 hours, the state paid citizens to use electricity. So because they had so much electricity, the first time it happened was in September 2017, and ever since it has been happening again and again and again. Citizens get paid to use electricity. In our country, probably we do not have enough of it at the moment to run even our other devices and white goods. So different countries have different philosophies, and for Maruti Suzuki, we are working on all technologies to make our products more environment friendly and going towards that route, and that is the reason why we have very recently invested almost 9,000 crores in a localization of battery for electric vehicles very recently. So that is how the direction we believe will happen. Electric vehicles in India will be through electrified vehicles, which are strong hybrids. And that is what is the direction we are taking in our contribution to the environment and sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that perspective. So I'd like to put the same theme across to Abhijit. And one is about the sustainability challenge for the paint industry. But also if you can comment on, is there a push towards sustainability from the customer side? Because you are very much in the B2C part of it. And if you can comment on this.
Yeah, so very relevant question, because these days, this has become a hot topic. There is a pushback from the consumers. Consumers do expect, but in India, the price equation holds more importance than possibly the sustainability part of it. If you try to give a more sustainable product, a product which is low VOC, in our case, volatile organic compound is something, it raises the price of the product, and very few consumers who are willing to pay the price for it. So that's an issue which needs to be possibly addressed in the Indian context. We have done something very interesting in this space. Paint is not normally known for creating some sort of a sustainable environment or trying to contribute there. But in the construction space, and if you look at any building, even in this building, for example, the AC is running constantly, and the greatest amount of pollution and the consumption of energy as well is through this route. So one of the biggest contributors of pollution, greenhouse effect, whatever you call it, is through the air conditioning route. And we went and acquired one company in Poland about 4 or 5 years back. This is a new technology which is called ETICS, which is applied on the exterior of houses. It's very popular in Poland, and Germany was extremely popular. And as he mentioned, German government actually used to encourage consumers by giving them tax breaks in the municipal taxes that they pay if they use ETICS. It conserves 35% of energy, actually, 35%, and so whatever, if you are spending 100 rupees on electricity today for air conditioning, you will actually be spending only 65 rupees if you use this technology. And this is something which we thought is a great product category. We were slightly ahead of time, possibly, at that point of time, but now it's becoming increasingly popular with the gas prices going up, with energy costs going up. The governments are also encouraging it in a very big way. So in UK, it has taken off suddenly. We are having unusual growth there because of this new technology, and we are bringing it here in India as well. In fact, last month we completed Mindtree office, which came up in Bhubaneswar. We did complete ETICS there. And then it is going to result in a substantial saving for that company for sure, right? We have got it approved now in CPWD, and we are looking at, government is also now encouraging this, because it is a technology which is futuristic and can save, and as you said, how can you contribute to the sustainability part? This is very, very important. Of course, on the consumer side, which you asked the other question, we have done voluntarily a lot of measures we have taken. Reduce the volatile organic compound almost to near negligible levels. Lead, chrome, mercury free, all that has been done in the past. In the manufacturing side, almost everything is now, solar power. Almost all our plants are fully, there with that. Biobriquette is being used instead of oil, for charging up the reactors. So a lot of efficiency on the manufacturing side in terms of, bringing about energy efficiency there. And of course, on the consumer side, whatever we could do, as I said, the only issue is the cost tends to go up, and that's an issue there as far as India is concerned.
Thank you, Abhijit. So we have about 5 minutes before we open it out to the floor. And I would like to move on to the next topic in the interest of time, which is how do we encourage MSMEs? How do we promote the MSME sector? And the companies represented here in the panel are national leaders. They are large companies who are able to make the necessary investments in transforming themselves. And we talked about investment in technology, including digital, AI, machine learning. We talked about the challenges of sustainability. But how do we, as leaders of the industry, help in promoting the MSME sector? Because these challenges are even bigger for the MSME sector. And how can we, maybe in terms of policy recommendations or in terms of our own supply chain, how can we help the MSME sector move on to this technology and sustainability bandwagon in a very seamless and, let's say, healthy manner. And can I put this question to you, Nitin?
Well, talking of MSME, one of the key challenges that we see today for MSME sector has been the availability of credit. And the last 18 months have, if anything, have intensified that challenge. So there are two potential solutions to it, or ways that industry can look at to help. Number one, I think there has been some good development in fintech sector. So we see new solution which has come up, and they are pretty cost effective as well, where a credit can be available to MSMEs. In fact, BCCI has recently taken an initiative to organize a day conclave on fintech and invited a lot of MSME to come and participate and learn and see what they can get out of it. So that's one part. So I think that part of fintech where a lot of new startup coming up with innovative solution, which seems to be creating a solution platform. That's one. Second element is especially supply chain financing. I think it's a win-win situation for large organization as well as MSME, where adoption of supply chain financing by large company can go a long way in enabling MSMEs to have surety of cash flow. So just for example, at Vesuvius we have gone through, we have recently gone on supply chain financing a number of banks, and we see let's say significant amount of interest that we see from our vendors who have surety of payments with the right dates, and can further finance their invoices and get access to cash sooner than defined payment date. So I think these are the two parts. I think large corporates, companies have responsibility to support on the credit side for MSME, and supply chain financing is, I think, one such solution which potentially enable MSME to be forward-looking. So that would be my comment on MSME on the credit side.
Thank you. Sudeep, what would be your recommendations?
Two things. Yes, I'd like to take some permission from you on the ESG side, as Riyad said.
Sure.
Most of the people actually cover the E side of it, emission, and the environment side. S, the social side needs to be taken care of as well, which is gender parity, LGBTQ parity. This is still not talked about in our industry, right? And if you see the SEBI guideline today to the banks, that they are talking about the S, and you have to talk about ethnicity, what's the divergence, and what is the proportion of your employees, your vendors. All these things need to be talked about and openly. I can right now, I can talk about one particular example. See, we do have lots of bots, right, in our companies, chat bots, or the video bots or the bots. Most of the bots, if you think of, the names are either a male or a female. Most of these are female, right? Or some of the cases I have seen male. If you look at those bot, the logo, nowhere it is for the physically disabled people. Right? So we have to think of how we take the S part to a certain degree, because our future generation will be very, very, they will be embracing those openness. And we are still not open to that extent. We need to. So that's one part of the story. Second part, I've got very few comment on that. As a company, I know, and as an industry, construction industry is one of the most polluting industry in the world, possibly. Not possibly, I know it. Right? Because the cement, because we still don't have the alternative in the world. We're coming up with the 3C cement or something like that. It's a probably long haul. And, but we are certainly coming up with 3D printing, etc., which can possibly reduce something. And most of the cases, diesel we consume in our sites hugely. We are trying multiple measures, digital measures actually, how to stop that. Now, having said that, last one is, which is not my core area though, but I must say that most of the companies like us are possibly or should be trying to promote actively on the vendor management part. most of us are ABC class of vendors. Possibly we need to have an MSME class of vendors that we need to promote, and possibly we'll have to look at how the supply chain, back to back, how that can be made a better cash flow enabled. Because in our industry, we are very bad in cash flow, right? Because most of this is government, unfortunately. But if we want to really develop the MSMEs in the manufacturing area, we need to have a very stated, well-trusted vendor management program so that we can actually take few areas and develop them like many of the government organizations actually do.
That's I think, a very thoughtful suggestion that both of you have given. One is on the financing side, other is on the vendor management side. And let me move to the panelists on my right, who all have extended supply chains. So, Subir, would you like to comment on how we can promote MSMEs in the industry in adopting technology and addressing the issues of sustainability, etc.?
Thank you, Abe. In the context of MSME, normally the first thing that gets talked about is credit and cash flow, which is very relevant, no doubt about it. But in my experience, there is one additional dimension that we need to address, which is expertise flow. Because the MSMEs that we are talking about, they neither have the resources nor the cash to be able to upgrade themselves to the requirements. Modern requirements. So therefore, it is very important that well-organized industries, those who have the resources, to be able to extend that expertise down to the MSME level. Whether it's supply chain management or whether it's quality or whether it's some other manufacturing process, this is very much required. And I know that there are some companies in India which extend this facility, because ultimately it benefits the company itself, the company which is extending this facility. So I think this is very important that the big organizations which have the resources to do this, they must extend this, this facility to the MSME so that gradual upgradation happens in the MSME sector over a period of time, and then they are able to really match up to the requirements on their own.
Thank you, Subir. I'd like to put the same question across to Shashank. And Maruti Suzuki actually is one of the companies that have completely, ever since they came into operation, transformed the automotive vendor industry. And today, the automotive industry buys components from vendors and assembles it. So there's a huge dependence on upgrading the vendors' technology and all that. So we'll be very keen to know your thoughts on the subject.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, for Maruti Suzuki, we have always encouraged the sourcing of components. In fact, almost 100% of the sourcing is through the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Many of those obviously come under the MSME category. I can't go beyond, I can't really think beyond these two things which auto industry has been doing, especially Maruti Suzuki, for encouraging the MSME sector. One, of course, is, I think Subirji mentioned, about helping MSMEs to raise their standards of their processes and their systems, their products. And I think their larger companies have a very big role to play to ensure that in terms of technology, upgradation, in terms of dissemination of that technology and assimilation of the technology and the assimilation of knowledge, the impartation of training for processes, that I believe makes the MSMEs the strongest. And that is, people say an indirect way of encouraging, but I think it's a very direct way of encouraging MSMEs. Second, of course, is what Mr. Jain mentioned, and I think that's very, very important. And I think government also has been announcing schemes where you can get, MSMEs can get collateral-free loans, and because that is the one very, very big factor in their development. So it is important, I think, and probably the most important. But for a long-term strength and well-being, I think investments by large companies in product and technology, training, improvement of processes of MSMEs, I believe is the right way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Shashank. And Abhijit, would you have some thoughts to add?
I think, most of it has been said. I almost 100% agree with what Subir and Shashank just now mentioned. That you need to actually improve the efficiency level, the safety practices, their process efficiency itself. Any innovation that we do in our own manufacturing process or in the supply chain or any other area should be taken to the small and medium industries as well. At the end of the day, and we do a lot of outsourcing as well, which we, take from them and then sell it in the market. So it's in our own interest as well that we actually make them more efficient. That way, we also benefit, they also benefit. It's a win-win situation. And something which should be encouraged. The other part of, financing, of course, government has taken a lot of steps. You can't hold on to the payment of the MSMEs. You have to release that payment, if they have invoiced to you. So they have put in some measures because there was a tendency that, you tend to delay and prolong. The payment cycle gets unnecessarily delayed as far as the MSMEs are concerned. I think it is in our also interest that we encourage them and keep them healthy. Because, they are the ones who also innovate. They also reduce the cost for you to a large extent. So it's in our interest to help them grow and survive. So that's something which I think we should keep in mind.
Thank you, Abhijit. So we will now throw the panel open for questions. But before that, just to summarize, the outlook for India is very upbeat. That's what was coming out. But there are challenges related to adoption of technology, whether it is digital, whether it is analytics, whether it is manufacturing technology. And there are definitely challenges related to sustainability that large companies are already seized of, but we can see that there is a responsibility on large companies to also help MSMEs come on board. So having said that, we will invite questions from the audience. We have about only 5 minutes left. And I will request that please restrict to the questions, not observations or comments. And please introduce yourself. There is a gentleman at the back.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. I'm Shubhruto Shaha from Shaha Steel Private Limited. We are channel partner of Tata Steel and Tata BlueScope Steel Limited for pre-engineered steel buildings and prefab houses. I have one appeal to Abhijit Babu of Barja Paints. For almost 1 year, I had been chasing Mr. Nilanjan Chakravarti.
Mr. Saha,
and
Saha Babu,
Saha.
Take it offline. Is it a question to the panel about
Yeah,
the
yeah,
industry?
it is a question.
You know.
It is a question. The question is that how, the paint industry can, enhance the possibility of adding value to the end products of consumer. For example, the, sheet metal items and other consumer items, how your painting technology and paints technology can add value to their end products.
Thank you. So, yeah, actually, in terms of the painting technology, if you look at it, there is a huge amount of wastage which happens due to corrosion. Almost 1 lakh plus crores in India every year. It's a mammoth figure. And paint is something which can prevent that, or at least, prolong it for a long period and thereby reduce this wastage. There are different types of technology which is used for different types of surfaces and different types of requirements. On the industrial side, we have a division called protective coatings. which we call as Protect On. And this particular division, though we are a leader in India in this space, we have consultants who can advise you in case you need it. Offline, you can talk to me as well, and I can put you into the right person in case you need any help. In how to, whatever surfaces that you have, whatever is the requirement, we will tailor make product solutions for you. So that's something which is available.
Great. There is a question from Mr. B.B. Chatterjee. So may I invite him to ask his question?
Thank you. What a wonderful panel discussion that we have experienced. One small question is, Indian industry basically is plagued with contract labor, large number of contract labor. And at the same time, technology generally means more machines, less human workforce. Now, how do you address this aspect in our journey to reach the sites that we want to reach? Any comments?
This is Chatterjee. That's just one point I'd like to help you ponder. If you think of 1970s, 1980s, when lots of these medical tests were not there, a lot of technicians, when the medical tests came up one by one, a lot of technicians talked about, my job will be going. Actually, if you think of medical technologies, by advent of different medical machines and the technologies, actually the type of job, type of skills, type of people requirement actually gone ahead multifold. So yes, we may think of it that, if there is more automation, the job will be going. Actually, there are more and more different types of skills are coming up in the market, and you should know that. So I personally, I cannot just say that it's going to be happening, what kind of job, because I can't predict even. But certainly, as we are progressing, we can see that how the skills level, requirements of different types of skills and people are changing, right? So I'm 100% sure that today's skill sets, obviously 40-50% will be going away from the market, but another 40% or 50% will be supplanting that, and which will be having a different skill sets. Job will not go. It will be having a different shape. It will metamorphose in different way. That's what our belief is.
Thank you. We have time for two more questions. Gentleman here and then Mr. T.B. Chatterjee.
Very good afternoon to all the panelists. Myself, Professor Dr. Rakesh Dubey. I am a dean in JIS University in the Department of Management and Juridical Sciences. My submission and little question to any of the panelists here, that what we consider that MSME is the backbone of economy, and that too, if we discuss about India, it is one of the largest subcontinent, what we say. Here in India, we have more than 7.9 million MSMEs, but the crisis is, majority of them are failing. The question related to this is, is it the responsibility of the larger organization to support the MSME? Or is it like government as an institution should come ahead? If I just put another part to the government organization, definitely there are policies of startups, but we have seen even lots of millions of monies which has been spent over the new startups, majority of them have failed. Now more than 9 lakh crore rupees is just like an NPA on the startups. So this is my question, that who is the support system, whether it is industry or larger industry to support, give the backup to MSMEs, or it is government organization. It is also related to sustainability part of the system. What I believe is MSME is basically a traditional way of management system that they are moving ahead with. But otherwise, your expert opinion, any one of you from the panel. Thank you.
I think maybe I will answer, because all the panelists talked about how we can promote MSMEs. See, they say that that government is best which governs least. So therefore, if we don't want the government to run every aspect of our lives, we as industry will have to take actions ourselves. We cannot expect the government to solve every problem, that is. And if you look at the MSMEs, most of them are not into there is a large proportion which is in the B2C thing. They are supplying a product to a consumer, but a large proportion of them are in the B2B sector supplying to an industry. And it is that industry that can have the biggest influence on transforming their fate. So therefore, I believe that industry has a big role to play. And there are many industries who may be actually taking advantage of the MSMEs. Instead of that, the industry has to become more responsible and help elevate the standards in the MSME sector also and help them move forward. So may I take the next question from Mr. T.B. Chatterjee?
My question to Mr. Srivastava. Sir, your industry is directly linked with the petroleum goods, or you can say crude price. India imports around 48 lakhs barrel of crude every day, not every quarter, every day. Now, Government of India has taken a very dedicated decisions about implementation of the solar power, and it is expected that 3 lakhs megawatt of solar power will be ready by 27-28. And you know that it has been brought under PLI scheme very recently. And about $150 billion is being invested in the country in the next 2-3 years for hydrogen-oriented fuels. In this background, can we expect that the petroleum cost or consumptions will come down significantly, because India's today's power plant capacity is 4,14,000 megawatt. And out of which 3 lakhs megawatt will already be available by 27-28 in the form of solar only, and then hydrogen power. So in that case, our consumption of petro materials will come down drastically. In this background, what you are thinking from automobiles point of view about your future automobile design, etc., EV and other things? Because I personally feel that India's petroleum consumptions will come down by 55% in 27-28, and there is no deviation. Is the industry thinking in this line?
Yeah, so actually very tough question, and I hope our petroleum consumption comes down by 55%, as you said, in the next 4 or 5 years. The question is related to many sectors, including automobile. So it's true that our petroleum bill is very high. We do not have oil resources. So one of the big consumption of oil happens in the transportation sector. So it's, of course, railways, it's trucks, it's two-wheelers, and it is cars. So government, therefore, has been encouraging the usage of non-fossil fuel, or at least cheaper sources of energy in terms of fuel. CNG, for example, is much, much cheaper. So government has been, as you know, increasing the number of outlets for CNG for across the country. In fact, they were just 1,400 3 years back. They are today about 3,500, going to be 10,000 in 2 years. So encouragement of such fuels which are cheaper, bringing down the import cost. Second, electric, as you said, we might see a switch to hydrogen or electricity or flex fuel, ethanol base, for example, the flex fuel thing. It has happened in many countries. Brazil is a very good example. So the industry is very much aware of this responsibility. It is also reflected, and it is incumbent on necessary for the industry for meeting those emission norms also to reduce the consumption of fuel. So other way of doing it, you change the fuel to cheaper like CNG or electric, or you change the amount of fuel used, which is to bring more fuel efficient vehicles. So all these responsibilities, the auto industry is fully aware, and we are working to it, as I just mentioned in my earlier comments. 2005, the emission was 154. It's a direct correlation, inversely correlated with the fuel efficiency. Higher means lower fuel efficiency. 154, and the target in 2032 is 78. Right now it is 113. So industry is and will continue to make efforts in that direction. And thank you for this very important question, because I think that is going to define our overall import bill, which is very much tilted towards import of petroleum products. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to conclude the session in the interest of time. I know that there are many more questions. I would like request you to take these offline. But I'd like to thank all the panelists, Abhijit, Shashank, Subir, Sudeep, and Nitin Jain, for a very thought-provoking discussion. And thank you for being here, contributing and provoking questions that we all need to ponder about. So thank you very much, and we'll formally close this session.
Before we move on to the next session, may I request the Senior Vice President of the Chamber, Mr. Gautam Ray, and Vice President Mr. Arnav Basu, to please come up to the dais, because we would love to leave our panelists with some unique and favorite tastes of Bengal, some Darjeeling tea and honey from Sundarbans. So can I have Arnav and Mr. Ray present the mementos to the panelists? Thank you very much. Thank you very much.